Have you ever had that strange feeling where you look back on a week or even a month and it's just a blur? It's like, where did all that time even go? Well, it turns out there's a really good reason for that. And together, we're going to solve that little mystery.
Okay, let's try something. Right now, I want you to actually think about yesterday. Not just the big stuff, but what did it feel like? What were the little moments in between the meetings or errands?
Now, let's push it back a bit further. Try to picture, say, a random Tuesday from last month. It all starts to get a little fuzzy, doesn't it? The details just kind of melt away. And that's really the big question here, isn't it? How much of your own life, days that you were absolutely present for, can you actually pull up from memory? For most of us, the answer is surprisingly little.
But here's the thing. This isn't some flaw in your brain. It's actually a feature. It's how your brain is designed to work, especially in the world we live in today. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on that exact system.
So first up, we gotta look inside our own heads, because a huge part of why our days seem to vanish starts with the brilliant and sometimes kind of frustrating way our brains are wired. And here is culprit number one, the routine effect. You can think of your brain like a super efficient office clerk. If you give it the same report every single day, eventually it just goes, yep, got it, seen this one before, no need to file another copy. Your brain loves routine for getting things done, but it's an absolute killer for making memories. And this all boils down to a really simple, fundamental rule about how we remember things. It's all about what's different, because if everything is the same, it just doesn't get saved. Simple as that. Your brain is basically a novelty detector. It's constantly scanning for what's new, what's surprising, what's a break in the pattern. The pattern itself? Nah, that just gets compressed into a single file called a typical day. This leads us straight to our daily habits, which often run on what we can call automatic mode. You know, that drive to work you don't remember, or making your morning coffee while thinking about something else. You're there, sure, but your brain isn't really hitting the record button on the experience. So what happens then? Well, it's pretty straightforward. If you didn't really record the moment with your full attention, there's just a weaker, blurrier memory to access later on. It's kind of like trying to watch a movie that was filmed with the lens cap on. And that brings up the final piece of the internal puzzle, novelty. Think about the first day of a vacation. You remember everything, right? The sights, the sounds. That's because it's all new, and your brain is wide awake, soaking it all in. Routine is the exact opposite of that. It tells your brain to go to sleep. It's a really practical, almost ruthless system. If a moment is basically identical to the last 100 just like it, your brain kind of shrugs and decides it's not important for your survival. So, poof, it gets blended in with all the others, and it loses what made it unique. Okay, so that's what's happening inside our heads, but that's only half the story. Now we need to look at the world around us, because the external forces hitting our brains are just as powerful. So here's a super important point. Attention is the front door to memory. If you don't pay attention to something, you literally cannot form a strong memory of it. And, well, our modern world is basically a nonstop war for our attention. Every single notification, every open browser tab, every time you're half listening to someone while scrolling on your phone, you're slicing your attention into tiny, weak little pieces. You're not making one strong memory, you're making like 3 flimsy, fragmented ones. And this leads to something called the overload effect. I mean, just think about the sheer amount of information you see in a single day. News, social media, emails. It is a tidal wave. Your brain is amazing, but it's not infinite. It simply can't store all of that. So it's forced to choose what to keep and what to toss. Most of what you scroll past or hear in the background gets intentionally deleted. It's not a bug, it's a survival tactic to keep your brain from, completely crashing. Okay, so now we have all the pieces on the table. We've got the internal wiring of our brains and the external pressures of the world. Let's put it all together and see how this system works to create that weird feeling of lost time. Here's how it all connects. Step 1. Our daily routines kill off novelty, which tells our brain to stop paying close attention. Step 2, all the distractions around us are constantly dividing that attention, making it weaker. Step 3, the sheer overload of information forces our brain to filter out most of what happens. And the result of all that? We are creating way fewer distinct, memorable moments to begin with. And this explains the big illusion. When you look back at a busy month and it feels like it flew by in a week, it's not because time actually sped up.
It's because your brain only has a few memorable snapshots to mark that period. With fewer mental landmarks, the journey from start to finish feels way, way shorter.
And that brings us to the most important thing to take away from all of this. Because look, it can feel a little sad to think about how much we forget. But you have to understand, you don't forget your days because they were worthless.
You forget them because of the way you experience them. You live them through the fog of routine, the haze of distraction, and the noise of overload. The experience was real, but the conditions just weren't right for making a memory that would stick.
And this whole thing, it doesn't happen overnight. It's this slow, invisible process. It just builds up, quietly, gradually. And that's the great paradox, isn't it? You were there, you lived every single second of it. But remembering it, well, that's a whole other story.